Kia ora koutou, kia ora ngā mema o te committee, ko tai mai mau ko Kelsey, hei ngā kai kōrero no JustSpeak. Ko Katie Perkins, tōku ingoa ko te tiamana o JustSpeak.
Tēnā koutou, ko Kelsey tōku ingoa, and I'm here senior campaigner. I am at JustSpeak. Kia ora. So JustSpeak, in case you don't know, is a people-powered movement for transformational change in the criminal justice system in Aotearoa. I'll hand it over to you.
Ka pai. So, on behalf of JustSpeak here, we strongly recommend that the committee reject the bill in its entirety. Te tiriti o Waitangi is foundational to Aotearoa. It provides a place for us all to belong and work together to create a fair, just and flourishing Aotearoa. The bill is divisive and proposes to erase tino rangatiratanga and extinguish the rights of Māori that were agreed to by the Crown in 1840. It will make it almost impossible to legally honour the commitments of Te Tiriti o Waitangi. The government has deliberately excluded Māori from consultation and evidence from experts in an attempt to distort what was actually agreed to in the original text of Te Tiriti.
Should it pass, this bill will be applied to all legislation, changing the way that Te Tiriti is interpreted in law. This means potentially ending the Crown's obligation to address the significant overrepresentation of Māori impacted by the criminal justice system. Te Tiriti o Waitangi can ensure that everyone has what they need to thrive, and by decolonising the justice system, we can strengthen communities, not prisons. JustSpeak strongly recommends that the committee reject this bill in its entirety and instead have a conversation about how we can truly honour Te Tiriti o Waitangi in Aotearoa, New Zealand. We're happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Kelsey. Katie, very concise. Members, open to you for questions. First one's from Todd Stevenson.
Well, thank you both for being here. Why does JustSpeak think Māori are overrepresented in the justice system?
I mean, it's pretty clear from the huge range of evidence that our justice system is systemically racist towards Māori, was not set up to ensure that Māori were honoured within the justice system. Not only are we overrepresented in terms of being imprisoned and being stopped and searched by police, but also in victimisations as well. The justice system doesn't look after Māori. It just causes intergenerational problems for us.
Mr. Chair, if I might just a follow-up.
Yes, go Todd.
No, thanks. I appreciate that. But specifically, what do you think the issues are? Is it employment opportunities? Is it homelessness? Is it social deprivation? Do you specifically think what the issues are?
I mean, the issues will be different for every person involved, right? But we know that there's usually a large amount of drivers to lead people to being in the justice system, and those range from what you said, from poverty to housing, but also, I guess, in this context as well, historic injustices that have led people to being in that position as well. I guess they're important to highlight.
Yeah, I can somewhat add to that as well. Exactly, in terms of there's massive historical injustices that have occurred, which have caused many Māori whānau to be in a place that they wouldn't have dreamed of decades and decades ago. As a police officer, now retired, I worked on the front line and would see the impact of just not being able to get that next foot up the rung of the ladder, I suppose, in society, and it would take one slip up and you're back in that justice system and in a cycle that is really, really hard to break. And you'd see that then impact not just the one person who may be having to deal with the justice system, but the whole whānau and the ripple effects from that. And with over-representation of Māori in the justice system, that's why I believe, and JustSpeak believes, that the system isn't set up to support Māori to flourish.
Thank you, Todd. I'll go to Celia Wade-Brown.
Kia ora, thank you for coming along. I had a question about your experience during the debate in communities about this bill. Do you think it's increased expressions of racism, or do you think it's increased people's ability to understand Te Tiriti?
I mean, yes, I definitely think there's been an increase in racism, and I think while we could be having a conversation that does help people's understanding around Te Tiriti o Waitangi, that feels really hard to achieve when we have one side of the debate, trying to rewrite what's in Te Tiriti, essentially, right? So the proposed articles within the legislation are not accurate of what was agreed to in Te Tiriti. So it feels like the starting point from the debate isn't coming from a right perspective. Sorry. And I definitely, I've noticed an increase in racism around the community, particularly the divisiveness as well. People have tended to kind of strongly choose one side, and there being little room for any discussion.
Yeah, and again, just to add to that, I believe this bill is hoping to play on the ignorance of a large part of our society, those who are maybe a bit older and have missed out on a lot of treaty education that is now happening a lot in our younger people and our younger generations coming up. So it feels like a sort of last gasp effort, potentially, by those of leading this bill to take advantage of a society or a group of people older in our society who haven't actually come to terms with what Te Tiriti really means for Aotearoa.
Thanks. Yeah, I did have one from Tracy before, but if Tracy doesn't want the question, Tracy, I'll go to you, and then back to Todd.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I did put my hand down temporarily because you have very aptly answered the question that I had in my mind. But you are like a grassroots organisation, so you must come into contact with all different sorts of people who are willing to engage with issues in various different ways. And you talk about the sort of difference between those demographics. Have you had any examples where people have surprised you, where the discourse or the conversations have been a little bit more enlightened from those demographics? Because we've certainly had some submitters that you certainly couldn't typecast. So how has that been from your perspective while you've been engaging in this process?
Yeah, for sure. One of the really awesome things we've experienced recently is we've been interviewing some young people who have had experiences within the justice system, and one of the things that we heard from those interviews was the rangatahi themselves were talking about the need for constitutional transformation in order to see change in the justice system. And yeah, that was super exciting for us. You know, as adults, we often talk about all these big ideas, but actually to hear that from the rangatahi as well, and for them to be able to see the need for constitutional transformation was awesome. So yeah.
Thanks, Kelsey. We'll go to a question now from Todd Stevenson.
Thank you. You said you don't think that the principles of the bill as drafted reflect the articles of the treaty. Have you put forward what you think it should say?
We haven't put forward what we think it should say. We have put forward what it does say, and you'll be able to find that in our written submission.
Okay, thank you. If there's no further questions, I'll just on behalf of the committee thank you both for being with us this morning, for providing your written submission and for speaking to it as well. We do appreciate your time.
Okay.
We'll go now to our submission from
Right, I've got to press lots of buttons to get that to work out. Okay, so I'm quite interested in looking at the questions that were asked after that submission, because that submission is pretty much in line with what both of us think about this bill. So yeah, I mean, why do you think, Nick, that Māori are overrepresented in the justice system?
How long have we got, Laura?
I've got all day.
We've got all day, I know. Well, I mean, I think the point was raised quite aptly in that presentation, that institutional racism of the justice system, and I think that was a really key point. When you got a police force that has historically been very has proven to be more likely to arrest Māori than non-Māori.
Yep.
I think that has a flow-on impact and flow-on effect when you're seeing more Māori going through the justice system. Factors like those that just have a flow-on impact to seeing more Māori versus non-Māori going through the justice system. We just have a justice system that is set up essentially by Pākehā to process. Yeah, it's a very difficult one. But
there's a lot of nuance here. There is
a lot of nuance.
Yeah,
here.
there's a lot of nuance, and
Sure.
That's part of the thing that's been bothering me about these questions, is they're looking for a simplistic answer when we're dealing with a very complex situation here. I mean, I could give a simple answer, but it's not going to answer everything. And I would say that it's poverty plus proximity is what you're going to get when it comes to crime. You know, especially when it comes to the stealing of property or when it comes to anything like that. Yeah, it's you know, why are Māori overrepresented? It's partly because of poverty. And proximity to wealth. You know, and why do Māori experience poverty? Well, we only have to look back to treaty breaches. The amount of land that was taken. You know, the whole of the South Island was pretty much taken. And then you've got the land wars of the North Island. When you lose the means to be able to produce your own wealth and to help your own people, you tend to get a bit desperate.
Yep. No argument there. Yeah. The justice system was set up by the colonizers, and that is not a situation that's going to result in good outcomes for Māori. We had a perfectly functioning society before Pākehā arrived in Aotearoa, New Zealand, which included a system which can be seen as a justice system. And, you know, I don't know whether I'm pretty sure that Māori would say that they had a perfectly functioning justice system before Pākehā arrived here. So I don't know whether there would be an argument to replace existing systems of justice with what we have right now, but there's certainly been an imposition of a colonial justice system upon existing systems of handling behavior that doesn't meet societal norms. But yeah, so for me, yeah, you're right. There are nuances within this, but this bill certainly doesn't achieve anything.
It's not going to. This bill is not going to reduce the overrepresentation of crime. with
No.
Māori people. It's not going. There's nothing in that bill that's going to resolve that. If anything, this bill gives the Crown the power to kind of reduce the amount of support that is given to Māori who are experiencing poverty.
No, and this bill was never set out to do that. So that was, I think we need to be quite clear about that, and I'm sure we agree on that. That was never the outcome, the intended outcome of this bill. So
no, it wasn't. But there was also another really good question that I wanted to jump on too as well. Is have you noticed personally? Has there been an increase of racism or division since this bill has been announced, been put out there?
I probably live in a very, and to borrow the word off your hat, a woke bubble with, but so not within the circles that I move within, but I'm not naive enough to know that it hasn't happened. So, I see it happening. I see reports of it happening. I read enough to know that this bill is almost an invitation for the types of attitudes, behaviors, and speech to carry on. And so, yeah, I think it is fair comment to say that this bill has increased the types of comments that perhaps we wouldn't have seen prior to its being introduced, and it's really concerning. Because it gives people it makes people fearful, and that's ultimately not a place we want to be as a country.
Yeah, I've definitely seen with this bill an entrenchment in positions. But another thing I have noticed too is, although there is a good group of people that have taken the initiative to go out and read stuff, there is a very big population of people who have stood up and said, I don't know. And I think it's really important that we address their questions as much as possible and do it in a way that is fair and understanding. Because a lot of people don't know. They are fearful, right? If you don't know things, you're going to be scared. And people, I talk to farmers, and a lot of them think, Māori are out there to take my land that I've had in my family for generations. But quite often these same farmers don't understand where that land came from, or, and the power that the government still possesses to essentially come along and take their land off them, right? The same breaches that were done to Māori, the same treaty breaches, right? We still have things in effect like the Public Works Act that impacts everyone, right? So the Crown can still come along and take your stuff. Doesn't matter whether you're Māori or Pākehā. So yeah, I think it's important to explain to people that are unaware of the treaty how this bill is going to impact them personally.
Yeah, no, I think you make a really good point. And I think for me, if anything, that's really positive to come out of this bill, that it has sparked conversation. I think where it does get a little bit concerning is that people are starting to polarize into their camps of being really opposed to the bill or being really supportive of the bill. And I think if we can start to have conversations about what it means for us as a country, I think that's where the opportunity to learn and to grow as a country around our general understanding of what te tiriti means. I think that's where the opportunity for, if we can grab something positive out of this experience, which has been generally quite negative, that's where the opportunity potentially can sit.
Right. And with that said, we'll go on to the next submission. I've got a million documents open on my computer right now, so let's have a look.
Thanks for watching. Make sure you're subscribed to our Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Instagram, TikTok, News Guide, to order paper